The Phillies win last night 3-0. We talked to Frank a little bit on yesterday's show, and now we really set up, record-wise. We talked about this earlier. 27-18. Teams with this record, the last two seasons, 11 of 13 that have reached this mark have made the playoffs. So we're feeling pretty good? Is that what we're saying?
I would think so. I mean, I know you don't want to put too much stock into a series before Memorial Day, but they sure looked good last night. They've been an improved ball club. They're really good at home, Mike Gill. So keep it going. 17-6 at home so far. Let's see if they can win another one tonight.
All right, let's bring Frank in for the mailbag as he joins us here on the Sports Bash Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Welcome back, Frank. What's up, pal?
Not much. How are you guys?
Everything is great. Real quick, before we get to your mailbag questions, you posted the story yesterday on Jared Eichhoff. Give us a quick update on Ike.
Yeah, he had a little bit of a setback. He said he felt some numbness in a couple of his fingers on his throwing hand, and they've shut him down. So he was on the rehab assignment clock, and they've completely jumped off of that, and they're going to start over when they figure out what's up. And there really is no diagnosis yet, although someone from SportsTalkPhilly.com pointed out that those were the same symptoms that Vince Velasquez had before his thoracic outlet syndrome diagnosis and surgery. So it's just that could be it. Who knows? In which case, that might be something worth watching. But definitely not a good sign. And it's funny, all the times we get questions about who's going to replace who. Well, sometimes you can't take for granted that somebody's coming back.
Well, I was going to say, is there even a spot for Eichhoff in the rotation?
Yeah, right now it would be kind of hard. I think we heard them say, Gabe Kapler said that Eichhoff has kind of earned the opportunity to come back with his past performance, but maybe it's okay right now that nothing is disrupted, because everything is certainly going very, very well for this Phillies rotation.
Well, Frank's with us. The mailbag's open, so let's get into it, Frank. And it starts with Nick Pivetta. I mean, Nick Pivetta, so far this season, I saw a number last night about his last three starts. In his last three starts, Nick Pivetta's 3-0, .47 ERA, 25 strikeouts, only 2 walks. And so Kevin wants to know, holy cow, can Nick Pivetta keep this pace up for a full season?
Yeah, I think the best thing that we can do to try to answer that question is to really look at his performance the second half of last year. Now, last year his numbers don't look good when you look at the season as a whole. His ERA was kind of high, but if you really followed his starts, kind of the second half, and he kind of made the rotate. And he didn't start the year in the rotation, but ended up in it really fast. But his curveball started working. His fastball was getting sharper and sharper. And the numbers reflect that, so much so that when we went into the season, even the Phillies kind of thought he could have ended up being the number 2 guy behind Nola. Now they added Jake Arrieta, of course, and he was pushed back some in that rotation. But the Phillies were really, really, really high on Nick Pivetta, and a lot of it had to do with that performance before. Now, I think for a lot of fans, they think, hey, we gave up Jonathan Papelbon, I heard somebody say, so he can't be that good. But, this was something that even at the time of the trade when Ruben Amaro made it, he said, hey, I think this guy could project to be a number 3 starter in the rotation, maybe at the top of his potential, maybe towards the bottom, he's the number 5. And you know what? That was a very shrewd pickup by the Phillies front office, getting him for Jonathan Papelbon, who the Phillies, if you remember back in 2015, Papelbon's contract was about to vest a whole nother year and another $12 million. And Ruben Amaro Jr. still managed to get out from under that contract by trading him to the Washington Nationals and getting Nick Pivetta in return. I mean, that's a fascinating trade. Tremendous job by the Phillies scouting department. Tremendous job by their development staff. I think Nick Pivetta does have some staying power in the major leagues.
With the passage of time, maybe that Ruben Amaro Jr. wasn't so bad. We'll hold that for later on. So Mike and I were talking off the air about Dylan Cousins. He used to be part of the Bash Brothers, and so Jeremy's question in the mailbag is, what's going to happen for Dylan Cousins? Do you think he'll ever get the call up?
Well, I think he's going to get a call, but I don't know if he necessarily has played in a way that he deserves it. Right now, if you look at his numbers, in 137 at-bats, he's got 62 strikeouts. So he is at a pace that if he was on that pace in the major leagues, that would be unprecedented in the major leagues. Remember back when Ryan Howard was setting strikeout rates, he was striking out 200 times and 600 at bats, right? So, but Dylan Cousins is about 50%. So you're talking a 300 strikeout season if he gets that many at bats. Thing is, he's probably not going to get those at bats the way things are going. Now, the one thing that Cousins really does have going for him right now, which could give him that opportunity, is that he is the only healthy position player on the 40-man roster not currently on the disabled list or currently on the Phillies. Now, Roman Quinn actually just went down with another injury. I know we kept asking the question, can Roman Quinn stay healthy? And once again, Roman Quinn has an injury which has nothing to do with any of his other injuries, which seems to be the case. But he had a little surgery on his finger, so he's not able to step in if the Phillies need somebody. Jeff Neal Valentin is already on the roster. He was sort of the backup infielder on the 40-man roster. They're out of infielders down there too. So probably what's going to happen if a position player gets injured, he might be the one to be called up just because he's on that roster. Now, it's also if he doesn't show in the near future that he should be that guy, and something that I had that thought the other day, because if you notice, both Andrew Knapp and Jorge Alfaro both got a little banged up behind the plate. You notice the one game Knapp left early and Alfaro came in, even though Alfaro had just exited early the day before. So if you needed to add another catcher to this roster, you're going to have to bounce somebody off the 40-man. And right now, he might be the most susceptible to getting cut off this 40-man roster, just because he hasn't really shown that he's ready to come up. But if he's going to come up, he really needs to show right this moment that he does belong. He's got to start making more contact. He's hitting 232. That's not going to get you promotion to the major league. He has 7 home runs, which I guess is a decent amount when you project it across a season. But that alone is not going to make up for all those strikeouts and the low batting average. So he's got a shot, if only because he's kind of in that position where they really have nobody else to go to at this time. But if he can't show that he is that guy, then you might see them moving on from him sooner than later.
Boy, that strikeout rate, Frank, that's 62 and 137 at bats. I know we're at a time now in the big leagues where strikeouts aren't as big a concern. It seems like, it's no big deal. But there isn't enough there on the other side of the ledger.
Right, but he's got to make contact, too, if you're going to strike out that much. And 7 home runs and 232, that is not nearly enough to justify those strikeouts.
Wasn't there a time that he was highly held in higher regard than Hoskins?
It's a good question. I think he kind of came out with his power at AA a little bit ahead of Hoskins, and Hoskins actually, he kind of flew under the radar because Cousins had a little better start there at AA. And Hoskins, if you remember, towards the end of that season where they were kind of going back and forth for the home run title, and I think they settled it by, I can't remember who hit 2. Well, one of them hit 2, one of them hit 1 in the Reading finale at Trenton that year. I think just the fact that Cousins jumped out ahead really kind of kept Hoskins on the back burner. And so when Hoskins sort of emerged last year, it was kind of a surprise to a lot of people because they were expecting Cousins to sort of jump out there first.
Frank, real quick, Neris closed last night. We saw Ramos last week. Dominguez got one. How do you kind of sum up what the Phillies bullpen looks like?
Well, I think last night was actually very, very telling. And I kind of disagree with something you were saying a little bit earlier, talking about Neris sort of being the closer. I think Dominguez was the closer last night. You look in the lineup where he was pitching, who came in to face all the tough lefties in the 8th inning? Dominguez, right? So by the time you got to Neris, you're at the bottom of the order, and you're less worried about who's gonna hit Neris. So even though the bullpen door opened and Neris ran out at the beginning of the
like
ninth,
that, by the way. I like that way you broke that down. That's a good pickup out of you.
So yeah, so Neris technically got the save. Neris got the last 3 outs, but it was Dominguez in the 8th inning who really faced all the tough competition.
Frank Close, at Frank Close with a K. You can always send us your Phillies mailbag questions at Frank Close, and of course we'll answer them here on the Sports Bash every day, every Tuesday at this time here on 97.3 ESPN. Frank Close, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Thank you so much, man.
Thanks, guys.